God accepts me just the way I am, and that's really the only thing that matters. So tonight I'm just going to be transparent about how my life was and how it is now due to Jesus. So just starting off, I always had head knowledge about Christ. Always knew it up here, but never right here in my heart. And one area that was specific to not, probably the biggest barrier to Christ for me was the area of pornography in my life, as I know that a lot of men today struggle with. So that was just a big problem, and it was just a habitual daily sin that took over my life in high school. But in May of 2010, my dad's own struggle with pornography came out, and he actually moved out for a while. But what this led to was my dad giving his life to Christ at the age of 44. So age is not a restriction for Christ to change someone's life. So my dad gives his life to Christ, and I see this change. Christ does for my dad in one moment what my dad had tried to do himself for 20 years. So I see this change, and I start to understand what this whole thing means. What I didn't know was a few months later in July, my life would be changed by Christ as well. I'm sitting in church July 25th, and my pastor gives a sermon on Judas, and how Judas really came off as a follower of Christ. He was one of the 12 disciples, but he wasn't a follower. He was a big pretender. He betrayed Jesus with a simple kiss. And the reason I find this significant is I read in John, chapter 13, Jesus washes the disciples' feet. He poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. And then jumping down to verse 11, it says, "For he knew the one who was betraying him." This is significant because even though Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him, he washed his feet anyway. Jesus knows I'm going to sin. He washed me anyway. And a lot of you have the same story. So I give my life to Christ, and what does this all mean? And just radical changes happen in my life. I wanted to go to school at Clemson University. I wanted to major in criminal justice, and I wanted to have a nice government job and sail through life. But God really changed everything. Obviously, I'm at James Madison. I'm a religion major. God has really called my heart toward ministry. I feel a huge pull there. And so God just radically changed everything. And even though Jesus has overtaken this sin, pornography has no hold in my life anymore. And only by God's grace and power will it never again. But I still struggle with different things. Some examples would be pride or lack of patience. But I know Jesus has promised to finish the work that he started. And I know that that's something that I can hang on to. And so, for me, my sin, my habitual sin that separated me and just kept me from accepting Jesus was pornography. For some of us in here, it may be anger. It may be constant anxiety. It may be impurity. It may be drunkenness. It could be a number of things. I don't know everyone's individual situation in here. One thing I do know is that if you are authentically asking through prayer and you are ready to give Jesus everything and you're ready to fight for that, and through those sins, Jesus will change everything about your life just as he did in mine. Thank you.